Hello everybody, this is Zach with Top Deck Nation coming at you today with another deck profile video. Sorry for the hiatus, guys. I know it's been a few weeks since that last video when I posted that Houndoom Mill video. I've just been kind of busy with grad school lately, but I am finished with my exams for the semester, so definitely proud of that. And now we can go ahead and focus on making more videos, making the website videos, making the website better. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about the future of the website. But today we are going to go ahead and do a deck profile video. And today's deck profile video is going to be really interesting because it's a deck that's kind of just emerged in the last few weeks or so of the City Championships. So if you're not familiar with the Pokemon City Championships, I definitely encourage you to check out the Pokemon website. Use the event locator to hopefully find a Pokemon City near you, and that way you can compete at these local tournaments. And I have to say the Pokemon City Championships are by far one of my favorite events of the year, mainly because there's so many of them. With regionals, they're kind of scattered throughout the year. You can usually find one or two every few months. Then there's nationals, where there's one big gigantic tournament. But cities is really a special tournament because there's several just kind of spread out throughout the year. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. With that said, a lot of decks have kind of emerged in the last few weeks. Houndoom is one of those decks. It's certainly an interesting deck that I think will get better in the next set. But today we're going to actually look at Charizard-EX. And like I said, this is a deck that just kind of came out of nowhere. I think a few players kind of piloted it, and then suddenly a few lists were kind of made public. Josh Squeaky Marking, his channel, I think he kind of posted a similar list. But now it's pretty much well known, and this deck is really, really good. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The strategy of this deck, just kind of looking at the list here, this is a deck that's focused on speed. It's nothing but speed. We have Entei that can be powered up through Blacksmith. We have Charizard that can also be powered up through Blacksmith. You have double colorless, Muscle Band. So, there's so many outs to getting a turn 1 attack. And it's not even just a turn 1 attack, it's a turn 1 attack that does a lot of damage. Just looking at, Charizard, it is Combustion Blast for 150, add the Muscle Band, it's doing 170, that's, already magic numbers to knock out a lot of Pokemon in the format, like Manectric-EX, let's see, Yveltal-EX, Lugia-EX. There's just so many Pokemon that can be knocked out by that magic 170, and that's why the deck really, really works. But let's go ahead and jump into it. So, our primary attacker here, just kind of looking at the list, is going to be Entei. So this Entei is actually from Ancient Origins, came out just a few months ago, and when it first came out, it was really overlooked over the other Entei. The other Entei has Combat Blaze for 2 energy. I think it does 20 damage times the number of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So very similar to like a Mind Jack from Absol from the Plasma sets, but a little bit better just because of the synergy with Blacksmith. But yeah, going back to that, this Entei with the double trait and that beautiful half art, this one was just kind of overlooked because, looking at the attacks, like, wow, for 2 energy it only does 30? Like, that's not good, right? And then Heat Tackle, I've got to commit 4 energy, and it doesn't really knock anything out, it's just doing 130, and then I can even damage myself, that's crazy. And then to make matters worse, it's got a water weakness, so Seismitoad-EX is just going to be plowing over these Enteis all day long. But the great thing is, the standard format has kind of adapted here, so a lot of changes have been made. Originally Seismitoad was, such a great card. It comboed really well with that Hypnotoxic Laser and Verbank City Gem to just kind of cause kind of residual damage, so you would end up kind of knocking out whatever Pokemon in 2 or 3 turns. You would item lock your opponent, and just, it was such a devastating combo. But now, what does Seismitoad really have? Muscle Band is still in the format, so it's doing 50 a turn. But there are just so many ways around Seismitoad. The newest XY promo, the Jirachi, for a single colorless energy, not only is it doing 10 damage, but it's also knocking off the double colorless, or any special energy for that matter, and it's also protecting itself from any attacks or effects. I mean, Combine that with Team Flare Grunt, with Xerosic, with so much grass support with Forest of Giant Plants and Vespiquen, and suddenly Seismitoad doesn't really seem all that great anymore, does it? I mean, it's doing 50 damage and item locking, but not that great. So this is really why Entei has a time to shine. A lot of decks are playing Vespiquen, with Night March or Bronzong or something. So Entei really just has an amazing matchup against a lot of decks, including Metal as well, just because it hits for weakness. But let's go ahead and look over Entei for a minute. So it's got that double trait. I believe it's Theta Double. This Pokemon can have up to 2 Pokemon tools attached to it. That's really awesome because you can just kind of start stacking Pokemon tools on it. Not only is it good for Muscle Band, but it's great for another tool that we're going to find in just a minute. But it does have Flame Screen. It does 30 damage. Any damage done to this Pokemon by attacks is reduced by 30 on your opponent's next turn. So, with the Muscle Band, you're doing 100 damage against something like a Vespiquen, and you're reducing damage by 30. So that's not bad. It's going to take Vespiquen at least a couple turns to knock you out. Other Pokemon as well, like, for example, like a Lucario-EX, suddenly with the Muscle Band and the Strong Energy, he's not really doing 70 anymore, he's doing 30, and that's, or 40, I should say, and that's a pretty big difference. You go in from 2-shotting your Entei to 4-shotting it. It's a big, big difference. And then of course we have the Heat Tackle. It's doing 130. Flip a coin of tails. This Pokemon does 30 damage to itself. So it seems a little lackluster at first, but just kind of imagine getting this off turn 1 with 2 Muscle Band, and just kind of knocking out your opponent's Eviltal EX or their Lugia or whatever it may be. That's why this Entei is so good. So it is our main attacker. It's got 130 HP, so it's nice and bulky. And we also play a couple Charizard-EX. Charizard's attacks are fairly similar to Entei's, but the biggest difference is that Charizard has a whopping 180 HP, so that makes a big difference. That means it's probably going to survive another attack or so compared to Entei. And then, of course, Combustion Blast, it's already hitting 150, so with the Muscle Band, it's already hitting that magic 170 mark, so that's pretty good. And then, of course, we play 3 Shaman EX in here. It is a speed deck. You want to get those Shamans out as quick as possible, get set up, get your Blacksmiths out, your Battle Compressors, get plenty of energy on the board. So that is why we play 3 Shaman here. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the supporter count here. So we do have 2 Professor Sycamore. 2 seems rather low compared to most decks. 4 is pretty standard just because, by far Professor Sycamore is the best supporter we have in the format. There's not even an argument to that, just because, just think about what's in the format. Professor Birch, it requires a flip. If you flip Tails, you only get 4, which is just mediocre. Shauna is certainly not as good as what we had a couple years ago with Professor Oak's New Theory. There's really not a whole lot of stuff. Judge is okay, it disrupts your opponent, but let's be honest, Judge is not as good as N from last year. So we play a couple Sycamore because we play all of these items that let me speed through the deck already in combination with Shaman. So, we don't actually need to use Sycamore all that often. We're also playing 2 Lysander. Very good card. You could probably drop to 1 in this deck, but honestly I like 2 because I don't like prizing them. Sometimes I don't want to waste a VS Seeker just to get a Lysander back. So I do think 2 is the right number here. But such a strong effect, when I can power up an Entei really quickly and just kind of Lysander Shamans or Lysander, whatever the threat on the board is. So that is why I play Lysander in here. Our main supporter is actually going to be Blacksmith. I'm playing 3 in this deck. You can play 4 if you want to, but I found that 3 is pretty good for the most part just because you can draw into it. You've got VS Seeker. You have plenty of outs to get in the Blacksmith. But it does let you attach 2 fire energies from your discard to one of your fire Pokemon. That's pretty huge. That is why this deck works. Without this 1 card, this deck would not work in my opinion. Attaching 2 extra energy a turn is ridiculously good, and the fact that you can do this every turn just really makes this deck worth it. So this is how you can pull off those turn 1 Combustion Blasts, the turn 1 Heat Tackles, so that is why we play a few of those in here. And then our final supporter is actually going to be Giovanni's Scheme. So, when this card came out, I thought it was really, really bad. You choose 1, which is pretty cool. It's got a couple effects. Draw cards until you have 5, that's a horrible effect. You can use it if you really, really need to, but like I said, at that point, you can probably just VS Seeker for a Sycamore or something like that. But the second effect is actually interesting. It's essentially a muscle band as a supporter. It says during this turn, your Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to the opponent's active Pokemon. So that's pretty cool, actually. I really like that. Um, and adding to that is that it's before applying weakness. So, like if you're going against like a Vespiquen or something, you don't have the muscle band, but you have Giovanni's scheme. Then suddenly, Entei's flame screen attack, it's going from 30 to 50, and then multiply that for weakness, and that's 100. So, if it wasn't hitting before weakness, it would actually be 30 times 2, which would be 60, and then you would add the 20, which would make 80, so you'd be short of knockouts. So big difference when it says before applying weakness and after. A lot of cards say after, but thankfully it says before, so that's really good. But anyway, this is another way to add damage to your Pokemon, so that's pretty good. If you're already hitting 170, you can add Giovanni's Scheme and hit 190. So there's a few kind of outlier Pokemon that have that 180 number, so they just magically they don't have that magic 170, but they just kind of miss it just by a little bit, so they usually survive attacks. And I'm thinking about things like Lucario-EX or Tyrantrum-EX, things that really just narrowly survive if we try to Combustion Blast or something with a Muscle Band. So that is why we play one of those. That extra 20 damage can certainly be crucial. So with the supporters out of the way, I do want to look at the items just because they're really what make the deck work. We're playing 4 Battle Compressor. We're putting up to 3 cards into the discard. This is really good the first turn because you want to get fires in there, you want to get blacksmith, lots of supporters. So this is why we play that. We want to speed through the deck as quickly as possible, take those quick knockouts, put pressure on our opponent. That's how we're really going to win. We play 1 Eco Arm just because we play so many tools. We want to put those back in the deck just in case they get Startling Megaphoned or Xerosict, or if an Entei gets knocked out. If we lose 2 of our Muscle Band or 2 of our Assault Vest, we want to get those back because they're really crucial, especially when Entei is allowed to have 2 tools on it. We play 1 Startling Megaphone. This is great because if you've been playing the Pokemon card game lately and been going to cities and league challenges, the current trend seems to be a lot of people are playing tool cards again. Just a few months ago, nobody was really playing them. We'd play a couple Muscle Band or 3 Muscle Band, but Megaphone was simply not worth the spot. There was a lot of other cards we wanted to play, and the logic behind it is, if I Megaphone somebody or a Pokemon with a Muscle Band, the next turn my opponent just puts down another Muscle Band, and that's just kind of a waste of a spot. We just kind of dealt with the circumstances. But now, with Zoroark from the new Breakthrough set, a really powerful card, really insanely powerful card. It's able to rush it and retreat. It's able to hit you with Mind Jack. It's essentially giving free retreat to everything in the deck, and we don't really like that so much. So 1 Megaphone is great for the mirror match, knocks off all of your opponent's tools. So if you're playing against Entei, that's awesome. If you're playing against something like Eviltal Zoroark Gallade, where they have like 3 Muscle Band and 2 or 3 Float Stone on the board, that's awesome. Knock all of those off. So that is why we're playing that. And then if you see any other tools out as well. We're playing 4 Trainer's Mail, really consistent, lets us draw the top 4 and pick one, pick a trainer card, so really good. It lets you get things like an Ultra Ball or a Blacksmith or even a Stadium card, so that's why we play that. 4 Ultra Ball is pretty standard, really good in this deck, has some synergy because it discards fire, discards cards, so that Shaman-EX does, draws more cards. Playing 4 Verse Seeker just because that's pretty standard. We want to make sure we can reuse our supporters as often as possible, especially in a format where we don't really have much draw support. So being able to recycle those Professor Sycamores and reuse them in Blacksmiths, things like that, that is why we play that. So we also play 3 Assault Vest. I love this card because so many decks right now rely on Special Energy. So, one way around that would be to play something like Enhanced Hammer or Xerosic to kind of knock off one at a time. But this is going a different route. Assault Vest is saying that I'm taking 40 less damage from anything that has a special energy attached to it. And that's a really big deal, especially when I can put 2 of those on an Entei and use his first attack, Flame Screen. That's essentially reducing damage by 110 if my opponent has a special energy on it. So that is really going to make you just kind of auto-win against decks like Vespiquen. It's going to make you have a better Night March matchup. Because essentially, if Entei has 2 Assault Vests on it, your opponent's Joltik or Night Marcher in general is going to have to do a whopping 210 damage to knock you out. So that's either 11 Night Marchers in the discard or 10 Night Marchers with a Muscle Band. So that's a huge difference, and that's really good. So that's why we play that, and then it's also good against Seismitoad as well, but anything in general with a special energy. We do play 4 Muscle Band. 4 Muscle Band is great because it allows me to consistently draw into those as early as turn 1, attach to Entei, and get the ball rolling with an attack. So that's really good. Also works with Charizard's Combustion Blast to hit the 170 mark. As far as stadium cards, we play a couple stadiums here. We play 2 Scorched Earth. This one's pretty obvious because it lets me draw cards. It's letting me discard Fire Energy. It's a great counter stadium as well, just to kind of get set up and knock off your opponent's stadium. But then we also play 1 Parallel City. So, I had the displeasure of playing against this at a recent city championship. I was playing a Seismitoad and Nitric Bat deck, which I should have a deck profile video of that as well pretty soon, so watch out for that. But my opponent was playing Entei, and they dropped a Parallel City down, and I didn't really mind it. I was like, okay, I'm still hitting for weakness. Surely I can knock out this Entei. Well, if you look at it, it says that damage from this Pokemon, or I'm sorry, this player's side, the Grass, Fire, and Water Pokemon is reduced by 20, but the key word here, again, like I mentioned before, is before applying weakness and resistance. So this is a huge difference right here, before and after, as I was kind of talking about before. So it's essentially reducing a Quaking Punch from 30 to 10. Even if they hit for weakness, even if I hit you for weakness, it's only doing 20 because 10 times 2 is 20. So, that is a huge difference. That really helps your Seismitoad matchup. It can also help like your Vespiquen matchup as well. So, really good card to play here. And on the flip side, when it's, reducing your bench size to 3, that's really good because, for example, if I have, let's just say, 3 Entei and 2 Shaman on the bench, well, I drop the Parallel City and suddenly I'm down to 3 Entei. So I've knocked off the Shamans, I'm already set up, so I don't really need them anyway, and then it's forcing my opponent to knock out all of those Entei. So really good card. So I think that's pretty much it, guys. For energy, of course, we're playing 4 double colorless, and then we're playing 7 fires. A lot of people play 8 or 9. I've seen a lot of fire in these decks, but I think 7 is pretty sufficient. It lets me discard just enough, draw into them when I need it. So I think that's pretty good overall. So, this is the deck. This is Entei Charizard-EX. It's a speed deck, really fast, really powerful. So let's go ahead and jump into a game that I played earlier on Pokemon Trading Card Game online. And let's go ahead and see how competitive this deck is. Let's see how it fares up against other decks in the format right now. Okay, guys, looks like we're playing against Machine. Looks like it could be a fighting deck. I think I saw a fighting Pokemon icon there. So let's go ahead and flip to see if we go first here. As with any deck, it's pretty crucial to go first. It'll let you get set up, attach your energy. So it looks like we are going to go first. So we are going to, of course, choose to go first. And yeah, let's go ahead and start it off. So looks like we have a pretty good hand here. I wish there was maybe a bit more draw support, maybe like an Ultra Ball or something to get Shaman, but we do get Entei, and that's really important. We did kind of avoid the Shaman start. Charizard would have been good as well, but we do start with Entei. That's probably our ideal supporter, and that is why we're playing 4 in this deck. So my opponent did mulligan, so I'll draw an extra card, and we do get a double colorless energy, so that's pretty nice. We'll be able to attach that this turn, possibly get fully set up with an Entei, but we also get that Ultra Ball. We actually topped it, so that's really good. So I'm going to go ahead and Ultra Ball. We're going to Ultra Ball a Fire Energy and a Blacksmith. Just kind of searching through my deck, just seeing what's available, what got prized. The great thing is that it looks like all of our Pokemon are here. We didn't prize any Shamans, so that is going to let us, speed through our deck pretty well. Okay, so, we have a few options here. I think I'm going to go ahead and Acro Bike to draw more cards. I can discard Charizard, that's not a big deal. I play a couple, so let's go ahead and put down Entei. Let's Acro Bike again. And I really don't like having to discard my Eco Arm just because that's going to recycle my Muscle Bands and Assault Vests, but that is what we're kind of dealing with, and I really didn't want to have to discard a DCE. So at this point, my hand looks pretty good. I can certainly draw more cards next turn by using Ultra Ball and Shaman, so I decided to pass right here. We see a Focus Sash on Halusha, we see an Energy on Lucario. Lucario will actually be able to get off an attack here. So let's see what he does. He opts for the Missile Jab, so he's only doing 30. If he had a strong energy on it, he would have done 10 because of the Assault Vest. So at this point, I'm trying to figure out, is there any way I can pull off an attack? What should I do here? Unfortunately, I did attach an Assault Vest, so I won't be able to hit 180 as easily. But anyway, I do need a Blacksmith regardless to even get those 2 energy. So, just to kind of one-shot a Lucario EX, I would need the 4 energy, 2 Muscle Band, and a Giovanni Scheme. So, probably in my best interest to just use the first attack and put a little bit of damage, soften up Lucario, build kind of like a wall of defense on Entei so that it's going to take a few turns to knock him out. And I'm going to opt to Flame Screen right here. And I did attach that DCE to the other Entei. I also opted to Blacksmith the Entei that's active, and that way I got a couple attachments off to 2 different Pokemon, so just in case something happens. So it will be my turn again. I'm just trying to see what the best option here is going to be. I really don't like discarding double colorless in this deck. I want to avoid that at all costs. But I do have a couple stadiums I could put down. Scorched Earth would be good if I want to draw a couple extra cards, get more fire energy in the discard. But I think I'm going to opt to actually put the DCE on Shaman. Just because, Shaman's not a bad attacker. If I run into a spot where I can't necessarily do anything, or I don't have any cards in my hand, or I'm just kind of drawing dead, then that Shaman might actually save us. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. At this point, I'm just trying to see what else we can do here. In order for Entei to actually knock out Lucario, I think I do have to Blacksmith, so something to keep in mind. I'm going to just thin my hand down. I'm just kind of, I use the Surprise Startling Megaphone on Hawlucha. I'm going to put the Muscle Band on Shaman, possibly. Maybe just to kind of set up a late game KO. The thing is, Entei is doing 130 with its Heat Tackle, so Shaman will be doing 50 with a Muscle Band, and that could possibly, knock out Lucario. That would be just the right amount of damage right there. So I'm going to go ahead and set up with Shaman. I'm really looking for a Blacksmith. I think I've got Blacksmith in the discard, but I would need energy in the discard. And, luckily I do get a Battle Compressor off that Trainer's Mail, so that's going to let me go ahead and put fire in the discard and possibly go ahead and take a knockout. The question is whether or not to put more than 1 fire energy in the discard. Honestly, I wouldn't, because then both energy would be put on Entei, and I'd rather not have that happen. I don't need 5 energy on Entei. So I'm going to go ahead and discard a fire energy, a Lysander, and then probably the Giovanni Scheme. That certainly might come in handy as well, that extra 20 damage. So I'm going to go ahead and VS Seeker for the Blacksmith. It is a bit of a risky play because, if he can somehow get just the right amount of cards, the Muscle Band and the Strong Energy, he might actually knock me out next turn. But Lucario is certainly the threat on the board. So just the thought of us winning next turn is more than enough to kind of justify that. Unfortunately, I will take 30 damage from Heat Tackle, but I'll get 2 prizes, so I do think it was kind of worth the trade-off. And of course, we get an Acro Bike, and that's going to help us draw more cards next turn. So he's down to Hawlucha, but he does have another Lucario. It leads me to believe that he did probably top it, which is fine. He's actually going to use Karina, so we might see a Muscle Band and Strong Energy. It's hard to say. But that would be, that magic 70 damage to knock out the Entei. Which, at this point, since I did do 30 to myself, it would be a lot easier to hit that number anyway. So we're just kind of waiting on our opponent, seeing what to do. Let's see what happens here. So he's actually going to be a little bit smarter about this because he knows if he promotes Lucario, damaging that EX, he's going to lose a lot quicker. So he's going to promote the Baby Landorus and use Shout of Power. With the Muscle Band, it's doing just enough. I really wish I would have hit heads on the Heat Tackle, but Entei is going to be taken down. So I've really got to be creative here and think what to bring up. So I'm going to bring up Entei more than likely because I might be able to get another knockout. It really just kind of depends if I can draw into the Blacksmith, because at that point, I'm pretty sure I'm doing, a whopping 170. I think this Entei has 2 Muscle Bands on it at this point. So I'm going to Battle Compress. I'm really just thinning my deck down so I can draw exactly what I need. I don't really need those Battle Compressors, so let's just get rid of those for now. Let's go ahead and Acrobike, and we get a Trainer's Mail, so that's good. And let's go ahead and use Trainer's Mail to see what we get exactly, because we really need a Blacksmith to pull this off. So let's Trainer's Mail, and there we go. We get a Blacksmith. And honestly, that's probably the better Trainer's Mail instead of getting like a VS Seeker, having to waste that. So I will go ahead and play Blacksmith, and that's going to let us attach 2 energies. I'm making sure I've got those energies in there, but that Entei was knocked out before, so they're certainly going to be in there. So I will probably go ahead and Blacksmith here just to get those 2 energy and set up that knockout. So again, this is kind of risky because it leaves me without a supporter, but I'm really trying to be aggressive here and take as many prizes as I can. The last thing I want is that Lucario powered up and just kind of steamrolling me. So let's go ahead and take another prize. Looks like I will get a fire energy, so I'll be able to attack with the other Entei if something happens at least. So it looks like he's going to attach a strong energy. I do wish I would have been able to keep an assault vest or 2. My Echo Arm is discarded, keep that in mind, so I won't be able to really play those down anymore. But it looks like Lucario, right now he's doing 80 damage, but if he gets a Muscle Band, that's going to be a knockout. So, he's going to be able to Corkscrew Smash for 100 damage. So exactly enough to knock out Entei. And then I'll have to promote another Entei and hope that he doesn't knock me out. So let's go ahead and do that. Lucario is doing 100 damage. I'll get knocked out here. He's going to draw 2 cards. Lucario is an awesome attacker. Being able to draw cards as you do damage, that's pretty awesome. So let's go ahead and bring up Entei. It's kind of hard to decide what to bring up. I could just Sky Return, and then that would let me have a supporter in the next couple turns, more than likely. I could set up after that, but that would let him kind of Lysander up the Entei and take out my only attacker. So I'd rather not do that. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and probably attack him. I can use the first attack there to do a little bit of damage to soften up Lucario. And I think I've got an Assault Vest. Yeah, I have an Assault Vest on Entei. So the great thing is that I don't think he'll be able to knock me out next turn. So that's pretty awesome. I get a VS Seeker off the Trainer's Mail, so that's going to actually allow me to set up and Heat Tackle for the knockout, possibly. But let's see what we do right here. So let's see. Lucario is doing, let's see, 100 damage minus 40. So he's doing 60 with Corkscrew Smash. And I think he'd be doing maybe 100 with the third attack. So we'll have to see what happens there. My mind just kind of went blank. I forgot the name of the this third attack. I think it's called Somersault Kick, maybe. But yeah, he's going to be doing a lot of damage if he uses Somersault Kick. But he would have to invest that third energy on Lucario. So big decision. I think my opponent is just kind of just kind of thinking it through right now, and that's fine. So it looks like we're just kind of deciding, what is our opponent going to be doing here? Is he going to go for the Corkscrew Smash, the safer play, or is he going to go for the Somersault Kick and probably get a knockout? Maybe. So let's see what he does exactly. More than likely, I think he's going to opt to go ahead and attach that third energy, and looks like he does. And we're probably going to see a Somersault Kick, but more than likely, it's not going to really knock me out. And look at that, it does a whopping 70. So he was doing 140, I think, but then I'm actually taking minus 70 damage. So yeah, that is why he's doing 70. So I forgot about Entei. The attack is also reducing by 30. So at this point, we do have a decision to make. I'm actually in a really interesting position here. We can actually use Giovanni's Scheme to get that extra 20 damage to get the knockout. I do have the DCE in hand, so I'm doing 130 with Heat Tackle. The question is, do I save the VS Seeker for now, or do I take that threat off the board? And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to take that threat off the board right now, and I'm going to go ahead and Giovanni's Scheme. So let's go ahead and Heat Tackle. I do just enough damage. That's why we play that Giovanni's Scheme card. It's a really clutch card. I don't take damage, which is really good, and I go down to 2 prizes. So, we're down to 1 prize, and our opponent is down to 4 prizes. So we took 2 prizes off that Lucario. That's huge. Gets us an Ultra Ball, but we won't be able to set up because there's probably there's not a Shaman in the deck anymore. All 3 of ours are in play. So our opponent opts Shauna. That's really interesting, and he'll be able to attach the Muscle Band and hit me with a Missile Jab. So he's actually going to come up 10 damage short of knocking me out. So this is really interesting. It really comes down to this. What should I do here? Should I just hit him for 30 damage and hope that he doesn't attach like a strong energy or something? And either way, I guess Entei is going to be sacrificed. Or should I play it safe? Or should I play it aggressively, I should say, and heat tackle for 130? And honestly, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to heat tackle for 130. I'm in a really good board position. And, he only has 50 damage, or 50 HP on Lucario left. So if he knocks out Entei, I can actually Sky Return with Shaman because of that Muscle Band. That's really why I didn't want to have to discard the DCE early on, because every one of those energy attachments really counts, especially the double colorless. So it comes down to this. He doesn't like Sander the Shaman or anything. He doesn't have a hammer, it seems like. So, this really could be it. It really just kind of depends on what he does at this point. But he's going to go for the Missile Jab. And that means we'll be able to take the victory here, guys. Shaman will be able to Sky Return for a whopping 50, and that's exactly enough damage to knock out Lucario. So I'm going to go ahead and Sky Return. I'm doing 50 damage, and we'll be able to take our last prize and take the victory. So that was pretty awesome. Shaman was able to, Sky Return in the end, the little hedgehog that could, I guess. But yeah, great game right there. Definitely shows you the power of Entei. At first glance, you think Entei is all about just taking those prizes with Heat Tackle or using Charizard for Combustion Blast, but it's not just that. Entei is a very defensive deck as well. It's pretty insane how people really didn't play this until the last few weeks or so. It just kind of, it was a deck that kind of emerged out of a metagame. So with Seismitoad being played less and Vespiquen being played more, this is a great deck choice at the moment. It's really fast, consistent, defensive, using that first attack, taking 30 less damage, and then taking up to an additional minus 80 damage because of the Assault Vests. Such an amazing play. It gives you, such an advantage against a number of different decks. But yeah, that is going to be Entei Charizard-EX, guys. If there's another deck you want to see me play in the future, be sure to let me know in the comments. So be sure to subscribe. I really appreciate your support. We're going to have more deck profile videos up soon. We're going to have some other video series that I'm working on. So, stay tuned for that. Check out the website, topdecknation.com. We have articles that come out every week. We have We have a card database where we're going to have some card scans that should be up pretty soon. We have resources. So, be sure to check it out. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/topdecknation. But, yeah, I'm so glad you guys watched the video. Be sure to subscribe. And this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation, and I will catch you guys in the next one.